what we talking about? Talking about the money, or we talking about the clout? I ain't got no money, so I'm on the same amount. Sleeping on my mama couch, I need to figure out. Need a different route, need to figure out. Need a different route, man, I need to figure out. Need a different route, man, I need to figure out. Need a different route, man, I need to figure out. Okay. Making money, counting money, paper chasing, losing money. Never saving, I'm a dummy. Bankers laughing, I'm so funny. But please don't laugh at me, still ain't got no salary. Numbers going down with the casualties. I can stay thin with all the leads, but I'm off for these. They don't offer weed, they just offer stress, never offer keys. If you found them all, then it's all for me. If you got it lost, then it's all for he. Or it's all for her, never offer per. Gotta stay calm when I'm off for work. Give my mind too blind from the offer dirt. I can write 4 rhymes and it all could work. Wait. That ain't real, what you feel, what's your deal? Why you broke? You ain't broke, you just spend for the thrill, ayy. I count on zero, still smiles on pillow, tryna vibe with willow. Pay no mind to the rhymes I riddle. Waste no time, can't play no middle. Gotta jump the fans, gotta check the mans, gotta choose a side, gotta make amends. Please don't switch when I'm making ends. Please don't switch when I'm making ends. What we talking about? Talking about the money, or we talking about the clout? I ain't got no money, so I'm on the same amount. Sleeping on my mama couch, I need to figure out. Need a different route, need to figure out. Need a different route, man, I need to figure out. Need a different route, man, I need to figure out. Need a different route, man, I need to figure out. Wait. Just gonna let this ride. This beat's way too smooth. Bounce me now, just bounce me now. Yeah. Bounce me now, just bounce me now. Oh, what? Bounce me now, just bounce me now. Kinda dope.
Welcome, Mr. Holmes. You have just woken up into the program, ever present. Hope you find it wonderful, because your brain will be asleep and your imagination will be limitless. At this time, you can create what you want, feel what you want, and be who you want. There are no boundaries, there are no rules. As long as you remain calm and at peace, you will become Orma'a. Enjoy, Mr. Holmes.
Let me put my mind at ease. Like the waves in the West Indies. Have the day, let me rest in peace. Take the pain away, no one stressing me. Yeah, let me put my mind at ease. Let me put my mind at ease. Let me put my mind at ease. Yeah, let me put my mind at ease. Let me drift off for a second. Getting all lost in the message. Words of a weapon. I ain't got time for the checking. Lines about the truth. Who you think you vetting? Really got time for the beef. Only got time for my rhymes and time for my beats. No lie, I'm a fly, I'm a prize to the wise. You can find on my eyes when the tide's on the rise. Hood gentrified and the blacks on the sides and the whites with the sides of my life just a prize. My life in my hands, my mind is my man. Dubbing these haters, that's all in the plan. No crack in the pot, but it's greens in the pan. I'm just trying to put some fans in the stands, yeah. Fans in the stands. Let me put my mind at ease. Like the waves in the West Indies. Have the day, let me rest in peace. Take the pain away, no one stressing me. Yeah, let me put my mind at ease. Let me put my mind at ease. Let me put my mind at ease. Yeah, let me put my mind at ease. Straight like that. And we still going.
You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You are now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humble host, Herut, and got our good brother here, Brother Brahe. How you doing?
Oh, brother, keeping my eyes to the sky and ears to the street, living and learning and applying. How about yourself, King?
Hey, man, like I always say, man, I'm trying to get like you. That's one thing. And the other thing is, trying to make my next day today and my next day is better than yesterday or whatnot. Just trying to take it to another level every chance I get or whatnot.
Yes, sir.
Indeed. But before we get too far, I want to remind you all to make sure you like, subscribe to this channel, share this on Facebook, all these different platforms. Make sure you subscribe to us on Instagram at Cosmic Convo. That's COSMICCONVO. And, this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Caliprucia Astrology. You can find Push It Forward on Instagram at PUSHITFWD. And you can find us on the web at pushitforward.com, spelled the same way as the Instagram. Brother Ra, how can the people get a hold of you?
Oh, you can hit me up at calipruciaastrology@gmail.com, or you can hit me up via Facebook or IG at Shechem Ra. One of those three will ring my bell pretty quickly.
Indeed. So, we're doing this episode a little late this week. You know what I'm saying? Ra and myself has been pretty busy. Got a lot of different things going on. I've been bogged down with a lot of projects and got the short film going and stuff like that. But we here. We here. We didn't leave you astray. So apologies for the delay. But we giving you all a little preview or whatnot. What we got coming and stuff like that. So you're able to view this episode live or whatnot. So big up to that or whatnot. And also I want to give a very, very, very special shout out to the patrons out there, man. Big up to the patrons or whatnot. Definitely appreciate all the feedback and everything that you all been giving us and stuff like that. As far as the Patreon thing, man, we're gonna do something special this weekend or whatnot in relation to the show. We're gonna hit it from a different perspective, from a different system or whatnot, but we'll get into that a little later or whatnot. But here we are. We're at episode 20, season 3, and this is actually episode 70 overall. So big up to that. That's a good milestone, man. 70 episodes, man. Each episode is at least an hour long. A lot of them are over an hour. So, just look at how much content that is, man. How you feel about that, Rob?
Man, 70. That's a nice number right there. That's a nice number. 70, it came a lot faster than I thought it would.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. But, here we are, man. So we're creeping up, man. We're creeping up to the end of this season. We always cap the season at 25 episodes. So we're coming up there and stuff like that. So, we got some fire shows coming up, man. And then next season is going to be even better. So definitely stay tuned into that. I don't have any questions, really, Rob. So you had something you want to impart on the people before we dive into the subject for today.
Not really. Um, it's just a nice kind of um, breeze that Venus has moved into Aquarius, where it cools off a lot of the negative forces in the world that we're dealing with. Venus, being in that sign that deals with brotherly love and camaraderie, and seeing things from an equal or equalized point of view. So it's nice that Venus is there where she can give some of her calm and cool energy to people, where we can get along a little bit better and maybe see eye to eye. You know, that's pretty much all I got to say for right now. Um, oh yeah, Mars will be rock conjunction Rahu towards the end of this month, so that's also going to be quite can be quite explosive. So folks out there, definitely watch yourself as far as your temper is concerned. Just be mindful of people around you as far as their temper as well, because emotion feeds emotion. So uh, that's pretty much it. Right? Um, let's jump on in right to today's show.
Indeed.
So uh, today we're going to talk about a very controversial. I don't even say controversial, but a topic that can be misconstrued in astrology, and a lot of times people use it in a very misunderstood way.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
we're talking about today here is debilitated planets, or debilitated graha, or Nietzsche graha. Nietzsche graha is the actual way it's said. Nietzsche is fallen, graha is planet, right? And you know we live in a very different world than when these particular sciences were formulated. And 2,000 years ago, life was pretty standard. You know, uh, in fact, I mean, considering we take things for granted these days, when someone gets pregnant, a woman gets pregnant, it's assumed that she's going to have the child for all intents and purposes. Whereas
Yeah.
2,000 years ago, birth was akin to death, meaning life could bring you, tragedy. You know, trying to give life can bring tragedy. And so, the worldview of just things that we take for granted was very different.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, you know, life was scarier, but life was taken a lot more serious. You know, um, things
We were more
were,
exposed to the actual, you know, external threats.
forces of nature. Yeah,
We were more exposed to them. You know.
absolutely. And so the reverence, the understanding, the perception of them was different.
Yeah.
And, um, I mean, just 100 years ago, polio, right, was a scourge on the earth. 100 years ago, smallpox, you know. So the advances in medicine and the advances in technology has shifted a lot of the ways that we should look at and interpret a lot of these planetary placements. And we're going to see some of that today. But
Yeah.
for example, let's say, when we look at a debilitated planet, thousands of years ago, the conveniences and amenities that we have in life now weren't there.
Yeah.
So, life was just a much more a do or die type disposition, right? And when you, as an astrologer, would see these planets, it would alert you, right? Kind of a red flag to say, this is something that we want to pay close attention to in regards to the outcome of the person's life slash destiny. So, And those times, when you would see it, it would definitely bring a sense of an ominous sense or ominous feel to the interpretation. And again, that's just because, I mean, take for example, you walking in the forest, right, and a lion or a tiger runs up on you, right? It's a little different than today, right? We have automatic weapons. We have, all kind of devices that can do all kind of different things to try to thwart or offset any type of imminent danger. In fact, we kill no animal kills man more than man himself now, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, taking that into consideration, right? When we see debilitated planets, we read them with a grain of salt. We read them with a understanding that what was conveyed in those times is applied differently in these times.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, there are still some definite messages that are implied in debilitated planets. One of the things that I see many people do in their attempt to convey astrological teachings is they fail to understand that everything in a chart is interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about the adept astrologers, and you know who you are. I'm talking about the ones that literally speak in terms of a very archaic or simplistic way of view, a simplistic way of seeing things. There's not one placement in a chart that is not changed or offset or differentiated by another placement in a chart. So when we see a debilitated planet, it's one consideration,
Yeah.
right? There are numerous considerations. For example, let's say there's a very prominent yoga in the chart, or let's say that that particular planet that is debilitated is aspected by a benefic or even a malefic. Let's say that particular debilitated planet is in uh, uh, a challenging house, or let's say it's in a very spiritualized house, meaning the fifth or ninth house, or it could be in a challenged house, the sixth, eighth, or 12th house, sometimes even the third house. Could be to where that planet is in a Kendra, in a core house, 147 or 10. Those are all going to be very different outcomes, right, with regards to that quote unquote debilitation. And so, I mean, and the factors go on. I mean, the ruler of the planet can change the name of the game. There are even some astrologers that purport that if that planet that is debilitated, meaning it's in a state that is fallen, and debilitation, just as a sidebar, really means that the attributes of the planet that we're talking about, when we say attributes, for example, like the sun, the attributes of the sun are leadership, courage, right? Vitality, strength, individuality. Those are all qualities, right? Or significators of the sun. When the planet is debilitated, those significators or qualities are reduced or diminished to some degree in the effect that they're not able to produce the highest qualities of what they represent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, right, trying to keep it in layman's terms so that you understand what we're talking about when we say a Nietzsche Graha or a debilitated planet. So, continuing, right, there are other factors, and some purport that, there's so many combinations that can change. I mean, even, and this is true, let's say there is another planet in the chart that is not connected, aspected by, or interfacing with that debilitated planet, and the other planet is strong or placed extremely well, that planet can offset the debilitated planet. Not in a sense that it cancels it, but meaning that some of the attributes that need to be worked on through the debilitated planet can be overcome by strengths of another planet or another um, part of what we have to bring in this particular life. So, for
Yeah.
example, if Mars is exalted and Sun is debilitated, the Sun stands for courage, but so does Mars, right?
Hmm.
So you have to kind of take and gauge, right, where these things are coming from. Again, the Sun and Mars can give that person, right, the courage that one or the other may not have. Let's say Sun is in Aries and Mars is debilitated, right? Again, some of these things can just change the factor of how those particular debilitations are played out.
Yeah.
So, all of those things have to be counted to understand if this is truly something that you can, you know, really say is really completely, utterly destructive in a person's life. And there are those examples. I can give you several, right? But nonetheless, right? This is what a true astrologer has to be. He has to be accountable and go through all of the steps and procedures to see how every single thing is lined up, and then make a determination. In fact, if a person's chart has their ascendant, their moon, and their sun placed well, then that can also be a major intersecting or interceding factor in how that planet is going to come out in its placement being considered negative.
Yeah.
If the ascendant is strong, their physical body is strong, their overall innate general life is structured well. If the moon is fairly placed well, they have a strong mental disposition. They're steady in their mind, they can concentrate, they have decent common sense. If the sun is strong, meaning they have a good sense of self and purpose, understand that their reasoning for being in this world, can have a decent sense of individuality, not overbearing, and can lead, right? Then that planet that is debilitated can oftentimes become something that they work upon and use in order to make themselves better, right? And so, these are some of the factors that you would take into consideration, and just really understanding how a debilitation plays out. Um, you know, the other piece is that you have to look at this particular planet in what we call the divisional charts, meaning you have to go through and see how that planet is playing out. For example, in the Dwada Shamsha in the D12, which talks a lot about how we deal with our internal karmic karmic battles, and really understand how we're programmed in some of the deeper layers of our subconscious. Also, how we deal with our karmic outlet as far as our parents are concerned and what we gain from them. That's what the D12 can indicate. It can indicate more things than that. But if that planet is placed well there, right, they may gain some of the attributes from their father, right, or mother, depending on how the planet is situated, whereby they can still lean in on some of those inner values and inner principles and overcome some of the negative attributes of that planet. So it it goes that deep. It goes to the point where you have to look at every single thing. One of the
Indeed.
things that is talked about is, and this is, I think, an overrated principle. I don't know. You can share with what you might think, Atef, if you feel the same way or perceive things from the same perspective. But you know, there's a big thing called Nietzsche Bang Raja Yoga.
Yeah.
And Nietzsche, remember we say, is, fallen. Banga means, or Bang means canceled.
Hmm.
So Nietzsche Bang means the fallen. It's a cancellation of that state of fallen state. And Raja Yoga is, a kingly combination, right? So it's a kingly combination that cancels the debilitation, in other
Yeah.
words. And there's a lot of different conjectures from different authors and different different astrologers. Um, James Braha is one that definitely you can look into. There's quite a few good books out. I personally think he's pretty good because he has a well-rounded, common sensible way of looking at Jyotish and looking at astrology. James Braha is his name, and in one of his books, he really talks about Nietzsche Bang Raja yogas in that they don't necessarily carry all of the cancellation or the removal of the challenging aspect of that debilitated planet.
Yeah. I
And
what I mean, just in general, just to kind of even expound on that point, I think a Nietzsche bang. Not even I think. I mean, I've experienced it. And I've seen it in various charts. It just gives you the ability to overcome it. You experience it. Those things are there, but it gives you that leg to help you overcome it.
yeah, it does. It does. And
To a
you
certain
know,
degree, different
to
levels.
the right, right, because it has to really qualify in houses that are going to allow you to see. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I have I have a very close person to me in my life. Um, Very unfortunate disposition in that he's a Virgo ascendant
Mm-hmm.
and he has Saturn, Sun, and Mercury in the eighth house. Mercury's 15 degrees, Sun is 14 degrees. No, Mercury is 15 degrees, Sun is 14 degrees, and Saturn is 16 degrees. And
Yeah.
he has unceasingly has demonstrated that he has a very uh I'm gonna say unfortunate, just tumultuous life. In
Mm-hmm.
and out of jail, in and out of prison, you know, head injuries, stabbings, just all kind of eighth house things. But the crazy thing is that, planets in the eighth house, if they're positioned in a certain way, you get what people would consider nine lives. Strangely enough,
Yeah.
right? You see that the person goes through some very strange events that could almost be that are potentially, for all intents and purposes, they're life threatening,
Yeah.
and they come out not unscathed, but but amazingly they come out.
Yeah.
And it's that Saturn in the eighth house conjunct the ascendant Lord, which also is the Lord of the first house represents the head, and the
Mm-hmm.
man has been hit in the head probably more times than a boxer, right? Um, and then the sun is there, right, which indicates a great deal of challenge, from the 12th house, but it's an exalted planet. So, I mean, this is a very unfortunate 14, 15, and 16 degrees lined up in a very significant way. You see what I mean? It's a very
Yeah, that's
life for
hardcore.
this person, definitely. And so, you know, I'm saying that to say, that the way these planets play, the way these particular events play out, is that, for all intents and purposes, he has a Nietzsche Bang Raja Yoga,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But the way it plays is he has nine lives, but he has to experience, right, those tragic, kind of fatal, almost, or some almost fatal events, right? He comes out to tell about it, which is the Mercury piece. It's it's his ascendant Lord,
Live to talk
right?
about it.
But he's in between, yeah, between a rock and a hard place,
Yeah.
right? So, and I visualize the brother, finally reaching, and he's in his 50s. He's at the stage of life where it's almost not too late, but it's definitely going to be a challenge to make something of what you would call a life.
Hmm.
And so this is just one example I've seen over and over and over, that these planets, they mean business, they do exact karma. But we live in a world or a society now that is a lot less um, ominous with regards to just regular living. And so
Yeah.
because a lot of times you'll see in the scriptures that when you read it, it's like almost like, oh my God, like the person is doomed, right?
Hmm.
And not so, right?
Yeah.
One thing I do want to say, and I said this before, and I have it rare that I will do this because I'm pretty adamant and well studied in what I say, but the complainants do compel and impel. I've said before they impel, but I've seen such situations they compel as well. So they do
Hmm.
both, depending upon the karma and how it's situated. Whereas some people tell you that it only impels, and I've in my research recently in the last couple of weeks, I've had to say I retract the impelling only statement. They do compel as well, and there's circumstances that I can give you. Just like, for example, this one specifically, the a brother, uh, for all intents and purposes, won't change who he is or how he's been designed until he is recycled. And there's very little wiggle room, right, for a karmic setup like that to allow what we have is what we call a will to offset those negative challenges, those negative inner, you know, areas of development.
Yeah.
So, I say that to say that these planets, and Nietzsche Bang Raja Yoga, just to cap on, put a cap on that, it has to be read with a really strong i- grain of salt. Like there has to be very strong placements and very strong houses for that planet to be offset. But it does happen. It does happen. And the Nietzsche Bang Raja Yogas will produce someone that does rise to greatness, but it's only through adversity. It's only through something that opened them up to see what it was that they were supposed to learn.
Yeah.
And I think we were
Well,
talking about that, that that's what it does.
you know, funny thing is that I mean, I would say I'll be conservative here and say about 80% of the charts, that 85% of the charts I see with debilitated planets. Most of the time, there's a Nietzsche Bang Yoga in there somewhere.
Hmm.
It's rare. It's from the charts that I've read, it's rare that I don't see it there. So just that point that you just made, as far as just qualifying it and seeing
Hmm.
how impactful it is very important, because most people who have a debilitated planet probably do have some form of a Nietzsche Bang Yoga in there somewhere.
And it's funny that you said that number, because James Braha, in one of his uh, books that he wrote, an article, a couple articles, said that 80% of the people that have Nietzsche Bang Raja Yoga still get the short end of the stick, and 20% are the ones that actually are the ones that really ride out and get that real beneficial kind of placement from it. So it's interesting that you said those exact numbers, because
That's
those are the
funny.
numbers that are correlated by what he says are the ones that really do provide, you know, um, some type of resolve, right?
Yeah.
And
That.
recompense or positive outs offset of the recompense, right? One outweighs the other, and
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and you have to have about 4 or 5 strong, like because Sheket, just she's got those, but you can
Mm-hmm.
see it because remember it's in seventh and the 10th and the ninth. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The ninth houses. Those are powerful. Remember, I said those houses have to be situated in a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
and then it can happen. And
Mm-hmm.
literally, you're looking at. I mean, she's a walking, living testament to it. So
Yeah.
we see those, but then look at her. But look at the example. You know what I mean? It's not an average. It's not like that's an average person walking on the street. You know what I mean? So that's why I say that 80/20 rule. Kind of, I see it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
The it has to be really be situated right to do all the way the opposite, right? Really, what it can when we say cancellation, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I think that's in degrees,
It's like a
and
yeah. I could think of one in particular. Um, Bill Gates.
mhm, mhm. Powerful,
Yeah. Yeah.
powerful. It's offset powerfully. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, and the one thing that all these particular kind of placements have in common is that it's run through the dasha system,
Yeah.
right? And what you're gonna find is that during the dasha, the health side of things will still suffer, right?
Mm-hmm.
That will suffer, right? Especially given the organ system or the area that particular house is represented by, wherever that planet is placed, in that particular house, that area many times, what not many, most times will have problems, right?
Yeah.
Um, for example, if it's the sun, it would be your vitality, right? Which is akin to your immunity. Um, if it's Mars, it could be your musculature system. Uh, you know, if Mercury, a lot of times the nerves, the nervous system can be,
Mm-hmm.
somewhat challenged. Saturn, bones. Sun is bones as well, believe it or not, too. But Saturn, we know, rules the skeletal system, right? And so, Saturn, weak bones, um, arthritis, gout, spleen issues, right?
Yeah.
All those things can be from in fact, I know somebody that I just thinking about had his what was it, a spleen? I think a spleen removed
Mm.
during a during a dasha that was affiliated with a Saturn debilitated Saturn. Right.
Interesting.
So yeah, Pisces ascendant, Saturn in the second, runs a Mars dasha, has it removed. So definitely, right? That anytime it's affiliated with a portion of the body, that it is a portion that you definitely can have issues with. Um, Sun also can be the spine,
Mm.
right? Right. If there's damages to the sun, spinal issue, spina bifida, right? Those can be issues as well. Curve, what do you call it? Curved spine,
Scoliosis.
scoliosis. There you go. Scoliosis can be also, right?
Mm.
Osteoporosis can be Sun
Mm.
and Saturn. So, right, you have to really understand, right, how these things really more Saturn than anything, but Sun can also indicate problems with the bones.
Yeah.
So, you know, looking at these things, that's when you understand that karma still must play. You know, karma must play out. But how many? Think about it from this perspective. Think about arthritis in the 21st century versus arthritis 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, it was a death sentence back then. I mean, it wasn't death. You might as well because you can't. You know,
You couldn't
if you
work,
was it,
and
if
if
you
you
was in
can't work,
Europe,
you
they'll
become
leave you
poor.
behind.
And Saturn debilitation, one of the things they say in the text is poor.
Yeah, yeah,
But one of the things I have seen is that Saturn debilitation is a great instructor for learning patience, right? Because patience is how, patience is a way of saying you can forbear or you can delay, right? Gratification. And that is the only way wealth is acquired.
Yeah.
One of the ways, excuse me, is wealth is acquired.
Yeah.
So when they say Saturn is poor, Saturn debilitation creates someone that's poor, right? You understand somewhat why. But again, I've seen many people with Saturn debilitation go and kick into overdrive and become workaholics, right? And then burn out from being workaholics, but at the same time do acquire some sort of financial wherewithal. So again, it just depends on how things are situated in the chart. But let's look at some charts to kind of get an understanding of what a debilitation looks like in this day and time, right?
Yeah.
And they're not uncommon, right? Debilitations are not uncommon,
Yeah.
right? Um, they're fairly
My,
common.
my daughter is one of the few people I've seen without a debilitated. Well, that's my. I don't even know a few. Most people I know got debilitated planets somewhere. A lot,
Mm,
not
yeah,
all, but a lot.
there's a few. I mean, it's just not uncommon, right? Moon
Yeah.
especially, because the moon hits that placement once a month, right?
Yeah.
So go figure. But one of the charts one to look at first is let's look at Serena Williams. Let's look at her chart first. And
Let's go
Serena
switch.
is a bad woman. She's a bad shut your mouth. She is. I will give her props. Um, you know, life plays out in a way that really does reveal karma is the way karma is a signature to tell you that you have been here before.
Yeah.
People look at karma as all these bad and things, but here's the thing: if you really pay attention, karma is just saying that you live beyond the flesh. That there is a part of you that survives death. There's a part of you that carries and stores and uses the experiences it garners from various lives to come closer to a sense of perfection or closer to divinity. And her life is all of the lives we're going to see are key testimonies that this science, this knowledge is, when applied properly, uh, undeniable.
Yeah.
Undeniable. Let's take a look at Serena's chart. She's an Aries ascendant,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you can clearly see her and who she is, you see that she is by far, bar none, right, a competitive individual,
Man,
right?
is she?
Right. And that is the telltale sign of Aries. They must win. They must be first. They must be number one. They might have to be out in front. They're the leading edge of whatever it is they put their minds to do. And this is what she is all about. She is the embodiment of competition. Now, you have different, ways of competing. Obviously, sports is the way that she competes, and Aries are adept. In fact, most Aries that I know, right, love sports or competition in some form. Now, I don't want to get too far from reading her chart because we got a few others to talk about today. But just understand that her ascendant lord is Mars. The planet that rules the first house is Mars, and it is in the fourth house of heart, of right, of that which gives you satiation, that which allows you to recoil and receive what it is that's going on around you.
Yeah.
And that fourth house is is it contains her ascendant lord, which is infuriated. Her ascendant lord is on on fire to a degree. And you would say, well, how is that? It's in a water sign. Well, that's what Mars does in Cancer. It
Yeah.
to a degree. Let's say this. A debilitated planet short circuits the intended wiring of how the planet is intended to function. So, and this is all debilitated planets. They're short circuited. So, what does a Mars short circuit look like? Right? Anger,
Yeah.
rage, right?
It's like hot water. So
Boiling, boiling water. And if you've
yeah,
ever
boy.
known, you can run through fire. I mean, get through it. Your clothes might catch a little bit. You might get a little. But if somebody throws boiling water on you, there's none. If I drop
It's
you in
a
a pool of boiling water, it's a
man.
wrap, right?
It's yeah. You're not gonna come out of that
And that is
unscathed.
the yeah, it's a done deal, right? So that's the energy that Mars carries in Cancer. It is that over. See, one of the secrets that I teach my students is how each of the signs provides an energetic matrix in order for that planet to do what it does. And Cancer, the one thing that it does, in fact, isn't it odd that the name of the sign is the same name that we use for a disease that grows beyond your control?
Yeah.
So, Cancer is the sign literally that grows things. Whatever planet is in it, it will grow. That's why Jupiter is exalted there because it grows un, unequivocally.
Mm-hmm.
Mars is there and it grows, but it becomes a hair trigger. Right? It becomes an instant reaction, no barriers. Right? And so you can see this in her disposition. Now, isn't it odd? Isn't it odd that the Karaka for siblings is Mars?
Yeah.
And if you know anything about her history, her life story, her older sibling was murdered. In fact,
And he's
the
not talking
book,
about Venus, y'all. He's talking the different one. Yeah.
no, there's another
Yeah.
much older sister
Yeah.
that was murdered, right? In fact, if you look at her life in the Moon Dasha, is when it happened. The moon rules Mars,
Mm-hmm.
therefore providing a direct connection to some unfortunate event through siblings or an indicator of what what Mars represents. And not only to mention that, look at what's sitting adjacent to Mars,
Oh.
Rahu,
Oh.
right?
Well, yeah. Rahu. Yeah. Rahu. Yeah.
The head of the demon, right? So they become demon like. right? In winning, right? They become demonic, right? In becoming number one. And we say demonic, meaning possessed, right? Another way of saying it. And if you look at that face right there, that is pure Mars possession, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, she's a great example, but also shows that relentlessness, that drive, that ambition, the courage, the overwhelming force that she produces rose, it brought her to the top. And it's in the fourth house, which is a Kendra house. And remember, I told you it has to be in a house that's going to produce something that is prominent. Not only that, the ruler of Mars, which is the moon, it is in Cancer, and the moon rules Cancer. It is in the fifth house, which is a Tricone house, which literally boosts that particular placement as well. But it does not produce a Nietzsche Bang Raja Yoga,
Mm-hmm.
right? So again, showing, right, that is, a very prominent placement that can produce wealth, fame, adulation, but think about it from a personal perspective as well. Think about being with that person in a relationship, in a conjugal committed partnership, in someone that is there to share and kind of bounce the responsibilities back and forth. that that's not something that's part of the conversation, I can assure you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah, she's probably a hard one to she's a hard one to deal
Right,
with
but she
indeed.
does have Venus, and here's the thing, she's beautiful. Venus aspects back to the ascendant,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it does give her some a physical, right, attractiveness, and also gives her some ability to marry. But Mars is aspecting the seventh house, right? And so, considering, right, I'd say any individual that would embark on that journey, salute,
Yeah,
right?
indeed.
Because it takes a very special individual, right? The next one I want to look at here is Mother Teresa. She's another really good example to show how this kind of plays out, right? And she's Sagittarius ascendant, right? What is the degree there? But like, is that 1 degree, right?
Yeah.
Mula, yeah. Very intense spiritual person, right? Mula ascendants create a very staunch individual that stands on their truth, provided the placements in their chart support this as well. But it's a Sagittarius ascendant, which will speak truth to power, right? Speak truth to power in various ways. And what many times Mula will try to uproot anything that they feel is unjust or unworthy of human behavior, human consumption. So this is how Mother Teresa was, right? Um, Definitely a uh, humanitarian, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, uh, someone that would you would consider to literally be I want to say a doormat, but you would consider her to literally be extremely humble in the sense that she understood that poverty and impoverishment and pain, right, is something that is universal, and that we all are human, and it connects, and we are connected through that pain and through those unfortunate periods in our life. And she fought her life to make sure, right, that the trodden, downtrodden man, the individual that is, last on the totem pole, the individual that is overlooked, the individual that is not considered, the individual that is um, judged harshly for,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of better words, for being born into impoverished situations. She took it upon herself to make those individuals, right, the recipients of her care and consideration. And um, you can clearly see Saturn is debilitated,
Mm-hmm.
right? In the fifth house, again, the house changes everything, right? The fifth house is a very spiritual house. It's a trine house. It's going to literally give her the ability to teach, right? To administer knowledge, to convey ideas and information to others. But she did this in a way by example. And Saturn teaches, guess what? By example.
Yeah.
Saturn is not the teacher that will sit and, lecture you and, walk you through a series of ideas and concepts. Saturn says apply it,
Yeah.
show it, prove it, right? And in the fifth house, which is what we call the house of past life credit or Purva Punya, she did just that. She unburdened her own karma by helping individuals that represented Saturn. See, let me explain this to you. The houses 1, 4, 7, and 10 allow you to express that karma, right?
Yeah.
To funnel it or to use it or to channel it, right? And that's what Serena did. She learned to channel that anger, channel that drive, that passion into something that could literally raise her to, the heights of sports.
Yeah.
Well, Mother Teresa did the same thing. She channeled that lack or that that challenged it. She channeled that energy, which we consider negative, into something that literally represents what it is that you're challenged with.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn represents the masses.
Yeah.
Saturn represents those
Common
that are
man.
impoverished,
Common
the
man
common man.
impoverished. Mm-hmm.
And so, how does she unburden her karma? She unburdened it by literally serving that which represents the energy of the planet.
Yeah. You can even see that
Now,
with
of
Rahu
course,
sitting there in the six. She's like,
oh yeah,
just obsessed with
oh
service,
yeah,
work.
and not only that, where is Saturn's Lord
It's in the ninth.
with an exalted sun,
Yep.
right?
Or
No, no, sorry, no, with the sun, no sun, and sun in its own sign.
Muchacone. Yeah, in its
Sun is
own
own
sign.
sign. Moon
Yeah.
Trachona sun, right? Very powerful.
Yeah.
Very. You see, the divinity is right there.
Mm-hmm.
The ninth house, the ninth lord is tight. Fifth lord in the ninth house with the ninth lord, but Saturn is debilitated. So all of that is there to serve the common man, to unburden her own karma through assisting those that have a heavy load,
Mm.
right? You can't get any better with the expression of a debilitated planet raised to a high level, right?
Yeah.
That's why I'm showing these things. We're going through these so to show you that debilitation doesn't mean you're cursed or you're damned. It just means that this is something that you come to manifest and work on to unburden those challenged areas in your life.
It's one of the explanations for the adversity that you. I mean, like you put a name to it. You know what I'm saying? Like people, everybody, people go through things, but when you look at it from an astrological perspective, is this is why. This is what it is. This is the thing that you're going through. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? Or whatnot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And here's, we recognize that, this is a force of, this is a force of nature. These are forces of nature, you know, that can't be changed, and we've become more knowledgeable but more ignorant at the same time.
Yeah.
Understand less about these, these forces, the more we seemingly have more technological advancements.
Yeah.
So the next one I want to touch upon is Albert Einstein. And most people don't know, right? You can research yourself. Albert Einstein had trouble in his early childhood in learning.
Hmm.
Comprehension was not one of his best subjects. Right? Well, what planet rules comprehension and learning and articulation?
Mercury.
Mercury. Right? And Mercury is debilitated. Now, we know he had some problems in early childhood and learning, also because of K2 in the second house in Cancer. So, second house ruling early childhood can clearly see that early education was not um, one of his better suited areas. However, right, that Mercury being debilitated in the 10th house again, in a house that allows you to take something and focus upon it to raise it to a high level, right? Um, it's in the 10th house, right, and it rules his ascendant.
Yeah.
It it rules him,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because he himself, right, was not a gregarious person, right? Wasn't a
Hmm.
socialite,
No.
wasn't, you know what I mean? So this now he himself is considered an obscure type person.
But we know him though.
Pisces rules obscurity. Oh, we know him
Yeah.
only
But
by way of what? Right?
his work.
The cancel the no, that Mercury being in a position to facilitate something much greater. Now, Einstein would find out things in a very different way
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
what, right? Right? He would do
In a
things in
very
a different way,
Piscean way.
in a very
And
in fact, he said he found E equals MC squared when he was riding on an elevator, right? Which is a right brain way,
yeah.
right, of approaching a left brain problem.
Yeah.
Mercury debilitated, right? And again, it just shows now Mercury's ruler, right, is in the ninth house,
Hmm.
right? Again, showing the elevation, right, of that particular placement in that house. And again, all of these are that 20 to 30% kind of rule where the cancellation is being applied to some. Now, Serena didn't have any, right?
Hmm.
Um, um, Mother Teresa did. Hers was canceled just because of proximity to the moon.
Hmm.
But and there were some other cancellations as well. However, you still see that Saturn and that Saturnian energy playing out to the max. Now, when it comes to Einstein, you see his Mercury energy playing out to the max, but not in the way that is congruent with what we expect. It's different and tailored to that person so they get the best out of something that would be considered challenging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It distinguished him, but it was it was something that was a apparent challenge, but he found a way, or destiny gave him a way to overcome it, to be able to
Absolutely.
work
And he
around
was
it.
born into a Mercury Dasha period, right?
Mm.
So if he was born into a Mercury Dasha period, right, he was born into it. He's born into learning disabilities, clearly showing
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Right.
Yeah. It's deep.
So again, showing right. This is how these debilitations can work. The next one we're gonna look at, and let's save the best one for last. Let's look at good old Barack, right? Barack Obama, and old Barack, right? He's got a really nice Jupiter debilitation in the 10th house. I mean, in the first
First
house,
house.
first house. And remember we talked about Serena. She dealt with hers through funneling it through sports. Mother Teresa dealt with it through spirituality or religion. Fifth house, ninth house matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Einstein dealt with it through science, right? Scientific discovery, right? Mercury. So they all dealt with it through the avenues in which the planet is represented.
Yeah.
Well, so did Obama. Obama, what did he do? What does Jupiter represent in regards to what is one of the things it represents as regards to um, guiding man? It begins
It's
with a
high
big O L.
law.
Hmm? The law.
Law.
But Jupiter is debilitated.
Yeah.
And how did he find to mitigate or offset the things that would have been otherwise missing or absent, or let's say even challenged to some degree? He found it in the very thing that, right, is what the planet represents,
Yeah.
law, right? Now, Saturn represents law as well. Saturn is law all day,
Mm-hmm.
but different side of the law. But they actually are in the same house together. So this
Yeah.
is how you can see clearly that Jupiter, right, had those things mitigated, right, in his chart. Now, look, he's got a nice overall. The setup is nice. Ascendant Lord's in the ascendant, right? Moon is in the fifth, exalted, and he's got the sun in the seventh.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very nice setup, right? Able to again mitigate, but showing also that he's conscious and aware of some of those inside issues that we may not be aware of. That he, not to say he's lawless or a hypocrite, but maybe if I don't follow this, I could lead down a path to a path that may not be so savory. Something internally, right? You know,
Yeah.
it guided him to that end,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
led him to, quite a high position, most powerful man in the world that we know of. So, again, right, considering this is how these debilitations work out. And this is considered a cancellation, yes,
Yeah.
but not a great one,
Mm-hmm.
really, when you look at it, right? Not a very strong cancellation. So keep that in mind, right?
To another point, and this is just a quick aside. I'm wondering. I mean, I'm looking at it now because he was important in this election, and he's going through a return of both of them right now, Saturn and Jupiter. It's interesting.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Simultaneous return. Isn't that dope? And a lot of things. I mean, yeah, he's instrumental. He definitely was behind the scenes. Definitely. Last in the last election. And so, this just again shows, right? That's how we see destiny, right? We're not gonna get so much in the Dasha periods, but he did get elected in the Jupiter Dasha period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Consider, right, right. Um, you know, so last one I want to touch on here is a very interesting one. And I found this one because I really was searching to find one that would really hold more than one.
It's like the extreme
And when I
case.
found it, it was quite interesting. This is an extreme case. I've been seeing too many like this. Uh, Pablo Picasso, right? Uh, you know, Greatness is born out of adversity, folks. I hate to tell you it's the truth, but over time you realize it's reality.
Yeah.
Greatness is born out of adversity. The pressures that Saturn, the pressures that life can produce can do one of two things. It can crack you or it can turn you into a diamond.
Gotta climb that mountain. Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll make it to the
And
top or not.
this chart, yeah, this chart by far shows the power of the human spirit, of the divine spirit, really. In that there's a part of us that no matter how much we're assailed, no matter how many issues we're born with, no matter how many things that come about in life that set us back, we can we can prevail and we can continue on and make great things out of things that are seemingly challenging. This man has four debilitated planets in his chart. Four.
Wow.
Four. He's got the sun debilitated almost by degree. And let me make a side rule to this as well. Anytime a planet is in a sign, in that sign, so Mars is in Cancer, Saturn's in Aries, and so forth, right? We didn't go down the list, but you can look them up for yourself. Anytime the planet's in the sign is debilitated, but if it's at a specific degree, we consider that deep debilitation. Deep debilitation is even more challenging than just being debilitated or in that sign. So it has to be at a specific degree. And when it's at that degree, then it is even more so impactful. And his sun is almost at 10 degrees. Right there alone, right, shows a very unstable individual, meaning that the degree is very concise in that his disposition to control himself was lacking, meaning that he had to go to certain lengths to get things done. It was not like there's no middle ground,
Yeah.
right? Now, Saturn is directly in opposition to this planet as well, and it's at what is it, 17 degrees? 20 degrees is Saturn's deep debilitation. So it's 3 degrees approaching, no, 3 degrees retrograde, excuse me, from that particular deep debilitation degree, aspected by a debilitated sun. That's that's very karmically stacked, right? Continuing on, his ascendant lord is debilitated. That's 3 debilitations, folks. That's like being born, with faculties that are just like short circuited in every way. And
Yeah.
then Venus, last of the Mohicans, last but not least, Venus is debilitated. And then if you look at the chart even further, I mean, look, Mercury is at 2 degrees. So there's a way you can get in. It's a right brain thing too. Yeah, there's no debilitation. Mercury's not debilitated at 2 degrees. But guess what is? The moon is debilitated at 3 degrees. And guess what is enemy to the moon? Mercury. So Mercury's sitting in the degree, the administrative portion of that sign where the moon would be debilitated. So again, further intensifying the moon's debilitation. So, the man produced works of art
Yeah.
that last, right? That still to this day, they're priceless.
Man, and
And,
he lived a long time too, man. He almost
yeah,
Like 90.
Yeah, yeah. It just goes to show you, right? You, you got to really understand this thing here, right? Because you would think from this, what you see, life would not be worth living, according to the text that the ancients produced. But remember, we said we live in a very different world. And so this man was a very intensely emotional individual, intensely, right? I mean, you know, his creations come out of pain,
Yeah.
out of deprivation,
Self-inflicted. Self-inflicted
deprivation.
pain.
Yeah, straight up.
Mm,
Right.
that's a deep one.
Venus is in the third house of producing things with your hands, but it is in a position that is unhappy. And so whatever will come out of the hands be produced from the ideation process of the third house is literally that which can embody the disenchantment with human behavior or human life or social life.
Mm,
Not only that, the moon, which is tormented, which is frustrated, which is in a sense of angst, right? It produces something from the soul that touches the human heart, which is the moon.
hmm.
The sun in the fourth house, right? The house of peace, the house of regeneration, recuperation of the ability to even to say I can internalize is challenged, right? Where there's light, there's a ever glowing light where there should be darkness, where there should be rest. There's no peace. There's if you ever, it's the feeling of not being rested even though you slept.
Yeah. No recovery.
All of these produced,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right. The pinnacle, right, which we call art, but that Saturn in the 10th house, right, impelled him to do it relentlessly, to the point where he couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, right? And God forbid, make love to somebody, right? Or be in a
Mm,
relationship. No, the art form became it.
mm-hmm.
So, you know, this is how you begin to intuit and see, right? That life is very interesting. We have many ways to come up with right things that we can see from the outside looking very beautiful, but on the inside come from things that are very unnerving.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
with that, right, we'll close shop, right? I think we hit a lot of nails on the head, a lot of good points about debilitated planets, because we are going to cover exalted planets in another show. So, definitely
Indeed.
stay tuned, for, and chime in for that. But I think this was a really great discussion and really uh, good way to explore the topic.
Indeed, man. Especially that, man. That Picasso chart, man, is a piece of work.
That's heavy. That's
No
heavy.
pun
Yeah, that's
intended.
heavy. No pun intended, right?
Indeed, man. Yeah, these are good case studies, man, for everybody to check out for sure. So pull these charts up, check them out. The data is publicly available, so look them up or whatnot. But with that being said, for those of you who are on Patreon, we'll cover a similar topic, from a Baza perspective. You know, talk about weak elements, right? And the conditions for that. Show some examples of how people work with it and stuff like that. I don't know. I might even
What
be
about
able
a
to.
busted day master?
Well, that all has something to do with it, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
or whatnot.
Hmm.
But it imbibes is a similar thing that, similar kind of strategy that's employed and whatnot. So yeah, stay on the lookout for that this weekend or whatnot. But yeah, indeed. But with that being said, I want to thank you all for tuning in. This was episode 20, episode 70. Thank you all for sticking with us. This episode's coming out late, but we didn't leave you hanging. So, definitely review this, share this with your peoples, and everything like that. And this is a full moon. I mean, like right now, right? Full moon in Leo right now. Yeah, we had to get it out, man. Like, we had to, keep it pushing. So, probably give me a little meditation in right now after this before I lay it down. But, with that being said, I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we will be back next week. Same time, so not this same time, same usual time and place or whatnot, with another great episode. All right. So we're out. Peace.
Peace.